And hello, everyone, and welcome to the Copyright 2.0 show, episode number 328. My name is Jonathan Bailey. I'm from the website Plagiarism Today, which can be found at plagiarismtoday.com, as usual. And also joining me, as usual, the co-host with the most, the man with the plan whose name is not Stan, man. It is Patrick O'Keefe, the iFroggy Network at iFroggy.com. Patrick, how you doing?
Linguistically.
I know.
I don't know, improved since traveling abroad. All the new words and ways of turning them.
Mad rhymes. I'm thinking about going and just being a rap battle artist.
If I wasn't your friend, I'd tell you I'd want to see that. But yeah, I'm doing good. How are you doing? Are you fully caught up now from
No, not
international travel?
Yeah, well, it was rough because you come home from international travel, then I got like 2 days, like realistically only 1 day of which was really full-on working. And then I get a 3-day weekend. So like something else to further muck up the schedule and knock things asunder some. So no, I'm not caught up, nowhere near. Hope to be by the end of the week, though.
Okay, good luck.
But yeah, I got a lot of writing to do and a lot of stuff to do. It's just been a real mess trying to get back. But, that's the way it is. Memorial Day weekend was this weekend. Enjoyed 3 days off.
Sure.
Thought about working some of it, but decided to enjoy the time with friends and family and loved ones here in New Orleans and come back at it strong on Tuesday. Been doing that, but still got a long ways to go.
You'll never die wishing that you had worked more.
Exactly. That's very true. That's very, very true. I keep trying to tell myself that, but
yeah, it's good to remind yourself that. As it's good for all self-employed people to remind themselves of that, because when you're self-employed, obviously you don't have set hours, and the push is to always, hey, I have time, let's work. But it's good to find that time and use it in other ways, not just with family first of all, but also keeping yourself healthy, exercising as you do, running, and all those things. So it's important to find that balance as much as possible, even when you're swamped.
Yeah, I was trying to look up who said it. I think it was Julie.
I said it.
Not what you said. It was Julie Cantor.
Okay.
That I think I got it right. But basically, the idea is that in life you're juggling a bunch of balls. You got your work, you got your family, you got your health, all these things that you're talking about. And the important thing to remember is that all of them are made out of glass except for your work. You drop your work ball, it'll bounce back into your hand and you can pick it up later. You do that with any of the others, you may never be able to recover it.
Right. Yeah.
So it's an interesting image, interesting metaphor, and one I've tried to hold into my head whenever I struggle with those balances myself.
Yeah, or another way to put it that you might appreciate is, you have all those items to juggle, and the work is the rubber ball, but everything else is a dog.
To quote Pete Holmes, I believe, or the
yeah, kind of a rough paraphrasing that you drop a dog, it's not a good thing. Not that we're dog droppers on this program.
No, we do not condone the dropping of dogs. Dropping of cats, as Pete Holmes will remind us, is fine. You can drop a cat.
Yeah, I just did that the other day accidentally.
You dropped a cat?
Yeah, she was fine. So.
Yes, the cat was fine. It landed on its feet and it probably just looked at you funny, right? Like, what was that?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
That's what cats do. They just look at you weird whenever you do something to them they don't like. They judge you silently. Yeah. So any news, anything big going on your way?
Are you a fan of the show Rocko's Modern Life?
Yes,
from
I am.
90s Nickelodeon?
Oh,
so I've got this shirt.
Hang on, I got to put the camera on you. Yep, there. Oh, yeah, there's Heifer. Yeah, there's Rocko at the very top of the pile. Spunky. Sparky, as he was later changed to. Yeah, got the whole gang. Yeah, Dilbert.
Dilbert, and I mean, so there's this line of shirts they're doing for Threadless for the whole 90s Nick thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can find a URL for it. But the 90s, what do they call it? Gosh, the run of program they're doing. Yeah, but it's 90s Nick. The 90s are all that. That's what it is. So it's this run of programming they've been doing for a while on Nickelodeon, showing the 90s shows, and you can pick up shirts like this. There's 6 shirts in all. Some Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy, Hey Arnold, Rocko. We bought 2. Me and Sean actually each bought the same shirts. This one and then another one that's basically the shirt Rocko wore on the show. You can pick these shirts up at threadless.com/Nickelodeon-retro, and it was a public competition. 498 designs were submitted. Six designs were chosen and there were 185,000 votes placed. So there were these 6 final designs, and like I said, I bought this one and another one. That was really neat.
Yeah, cool. I'm actually looking at the site for the 90s Are All That site. Yeah, it's a late night block of 90s children's television.
Yeah.
So it looks like it'd be an awesome thing to catch. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never really tuned in, but from what I gather, they change the programming from time to time. They'll opt in things like, let's see, what from the Wikipedia page they have shows like Real Monsters, Are You Afraid of the Dark, which I own every episode on DVD on. Anyway, and then I don't know. They must have other ones as well, and some that are mixed in occasionally. I'm looking at the special programming block. Salute Your Shorts was a show that
Yeah.
So it seemed like it constantly replayed.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to mention. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Now, real fast. Do you know if there's any mention of Hey Dude, the show?
Hey Dude.
They've been talking. It's like the 25th anniversary of that show, and there's been a lot of talk about getting the cast reunited.
Yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, it looks like they have put Hey Dude on sometimes. According to the Wikipedia page, I mean, it's not on right now, I don't think, but they have put it on. That's interesting. I didn't even know that was coming up. I mean, who would really, yeah, I don't know how many people are talking about it. But I see there was a Huffington Post article. Where are the cast members now?
I think that might be where I actually heard about it, was the HuffPo article. It might have been on Dig or Reddit or something.
It was actually, I don't know why, 65. In fact, there were at least a bunch of them on Amazon Prime, so that's cool. And the big person to come out is Steve Taylor. I think might have been the biggest. She's been in a ton of things over the years. Now I'm hearing an ad in my ears. So yeah, but I enjoyed that show. Not as much as some of the other shows, but I enjoyed it a lot back then. 90s Nickelodeon.
It was a good time for Nickelodeon, and a good time. It was the channel for us.
Yeah. I'm not one of the people who's like, the 90s were the best and everything today, and today Nickelodeon sucks. I'm not one of those people, because that just really makes... I don't want to be that old man. Like, I really don't... Kids today like what kids today have. And in 20 years, like us, they'll be looking back on their era nostalgically and thinking, oh, man, I missed this show, that show. These were all great shows. That was a golden era. I don't know. I think people my age need to sometimes get a little perspective.
Yeah, I agree. And everyone has their moment when they lose touch with what the kids younger are doing. I remember mine very well. It was when I first saw the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Okay. I watched it, and I watched a couple episodes, and I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, I will say I never watched that show.
That doesn't shock me. Of course, you saying you never watched...
What generation was that show, though?
I think it was just a few years behind me. So
okay, I think it was probably like my age. Let me see when it premiered. And I just never really watched it,
it's more geared toward your age and maybe even a little bit younger.
Yeah, it premiered in '93, and on the day it premiered, I would have been 8, turning 9 shortly. So, that's fair. That's fair play, I guess, to say it would have been in my years 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah. That's probably the age area.
It's a ballpark.
Yeah, there were 2 things that I really watched a lot, and it was Nickelodeon and it was Saturday morning cartoons. So Saturday morning cartoons, I'm trying to think, would have been anything from, the Scooby-Doo, I don't know, Scooby-Doo Junior thing. Remember that?
Yep.
Kids edition of Scooby-Doo. I watched that. Tales from the Crypt Keeper. I remember that show vividly, even though it didn't run that long, but it was like a kid's version of, Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, that was a cool show. I like that show. Ace Ventura Pet Detective cartoon.
I'd forgotten that even had a cartoon. I remember it, but I remember it having one. But it's one of those things where it's easy to forget that it did.
Yeah, it is easy to forget. And I think it was relatively short-lived, but it was fun. And as a lot of cartoons of that age were, Saturday morning stuff tended to be a season or 2, 3. I mean, if you got 3 seasons out of those things, that was like bonanza.
Well, do you remember the show Pro Stars?
Pro Stars, huh?
That was a 91 show. Might have been a little bit ahead of you on the cover.
No, I'm looking at this. I don't remember this show. No.
Yeah, it had Wayne Gretzky, Michael Jordan, and Bo Jackson to date this quite nicely.
Fighting crime and helping children. Yes. Wow, that's amazing.
And it is exactly what it reads. I mean, you don't really need me to describe much else.
I like how they've got voice actors for those three.
Yeah.
You know, like they got the likeness, but they couldn't get the voices.
Because they're not real people that could come to the studio.
Yeah, I mean, as he voiced by Dorian Harewood, Michael Jordan, Townsend Coleman provided the voice for Wayne Gretzky, and Dave Fennoy for Bo Jackson. Yeah, I mean, I know this, I didn't see this show, but it wasn't. I mean, I definitely watched that NBC CBS area of Saturday morning cartoons. Now you want to make me want to look up what was on at the years I watched, but yeah, that's amazing. That show. Where's the video game? That's what I want to know. Maybe we could make that happen now, like with the latest technology. Have the crime-fighting trio of Bo Jackson, Michael Jordan, and Wayne Gretzky.
That would be an epic video game. You are correct.
I like how the fourth character on the Wikipedia page is Mom, voiced by Susan Silo. It says, "Go ahead, sorry."
The leader of the group. It was like.
Oh yeah. There, you're right. I see that. It says she is the cue to the Pro Stars James Bond.
Exactly. She was like the figurehead of the organization.
What a way to put it. It says she's a quasi-Yiddish and Jewish mother stereotype.
Because that's exactly who Michael Jordan and Bo Jackson would call Mom. That just screams.
Yeah.
It's like none of them that would call someone like that Mom.
Yeah, what a great idea for a show. That could have like a resurgence right now. I mean. You got what?
Oh, they're bringing back the Shaq.
Go ahead.
Bringing back the Shaq Fu video game.
Oh yeah, you're right. Wow. Yeah,
That's
awesome. That's awesome. We got 5 people in the chat right now apparently, but nobody logged in, so maybe.
Oh, well.
One thing before we get started on copyright. This is copyright related. I figured I'd mention it now rather than at the end of the show. We're not going to talk about Quentin Tarantino this week because there's nothing really to talk about. But I did read an interesting article about his appearance at Cannes. And he said something, or linked to something, that he gave a stage reading, first of all, of the script that leaked, right? His current version of it. That was a month ago. It was pretty cool. But what he said in the article is related to what we've talked about, the ongoing dispute with Gawker, and, well, that's now no longer a dispute. But he said, quote, "I've calmed down a bit from the knife in the back. The wound is starting to scab." It was great to have... let me just go back to what he said related to the script. "I'm in no hurry. Maybe I'll shoot it. Maybe I'll publish it. Maybe I'll do it on the stage. Maybe I'll do all 3. So, seems like he's calmed down or backed down. I don't know. I don't like to calm down. To me, it's kind of condescending when people say calm down to me. But he's sort of backed down a little bit from what he had been going at with Gawker, and maybe they will not see any further kind of legal challenges from him. But as we kind of discussed, that's a personal thing for him, and not something that was a good experience. But now there's been some time, and time can heal some wounds.
I guess maybe that's what's happened.
Yeah.
We can hope. Speaking of stuff that we won't be talking about in the podcast, this one because it happened too soon. Did you hear that Apple has confirmed its purchase of Beats?
Yeah, I actually just heard that before we went on the show. That's I don't know. It's interesting.
Like just happened as we were firing up.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I'm not sure what to think about it. I think it's impactful for Spotify, certainly in audio. Beats Music was already a competitor, and a good competitor from what I've heard, and certainly a worthy adversary. But now with Apple behind them, and Apple, that being kind of the piece of the puzzle for Apple, because they do have the ability to sell you music. We talked about them many episodes ago in comparison to other services, and the differences. No one has all 3 yet. No one has all 3 of storage, like iCloud, like Amazon Cloud Player. No one has, and the second thing would be selling music, like Amazon iTunes do. And the third would be the streaming service, where you pay a subscription to get access to a licensed library of songs. Now Apple has all 3, and they are the first to do that, I believe. Amazon still doesn't have a streaming service. There are no plans that I know of to launch a streaming service. Google also doesn't have a streaming service. So the streaming services are independent. You see a Spotify.
No, Google does have a streaming service.
What's it called? Is it Google Music?
Yeah, it's Google Music.
Okay, I don't know
They
why.
actually do have a streaming service that's similar to Spotify. It doesn't have quite as robust of a library.
Okay. Hmm. Google Play Music. I guess. Yeah. I don't. I guess. I don't know why I hadn't heard of that. Google Music All Access. Okay, that's what it is. All right. Now I
Yeah,
remember.
I actually tinkered
Anyway.
with it when it first came out. Wasn't really impressed when back to Spotify.
Yeah. So Google did put it together, but I think you have Apple here, and now you kind of. I don't know. It feels like Spotify's at a disadvantage, and it feels like Amazon's at a disadvantage. And I don't know. I think they'll both look to, I don't know what's going to happen with Spotify. They're the most successful of streaming services far and away, and rumored to be partially owned by the music industry. So I think with that being the case, they have a lot going for them. Certainly nothing for them to fear. But Apple throwing so much money behind Beats, which, of course, it's not just streaming. In fact, it's the streaming part that gets left behind in the conversation. Most people focus on the equipment, on the headphones, on the audio technology. So I don't know. I'll be interested to see what Apple does with that brand and why they felt it necessary to buy it versus just launching their own products.
Well, in Apple's statement, they said they were especially interested in getting their hands on what they called, I think they called them kindred spirits, and Dre and Levine at Beats. So
Jimmy Iovine. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess it's an acqui-hire of sorts.
A very expensive acqui-hire.
Yeah, I mean, you don't pay $3 billion just for the people, but certainly they're getting a successful company, a company that's successful enough that they ended up buying, Dre, etc., Iovine, whatever. The consortium ended up buying back the stake from HTC after they sold like half the company, and now they're selling it all to Apple. I mean, I think they come away looking like geniuses. And we'll see how Apple ends up playing the brand. I don't know. It's not an area that I'm particularly passionate or well versed in. I'm neither an Apple customer nor a Beats customer, even though I have a great friend who used to run all their social stuff and really took them from pretty much nothing social media wise to prominence. So yeah, I have one Beats product that I got for free. I have one Apple product I got for free. It's funny. I have Diddy Beats, which I got a review copy of.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And then I have the iPod Touch First Gen, which or not Touch, iPod Mini First Gen, which I got for free from a contest from Atlantic Records, Notorious B.I.G. contest. So I haven't given any of these companies my money.
Well, on this end, I think, as you know, this podcast is being recorded on a MacBook Pro 2013 edition, along with using an iPhone 5, soon to be upgraded to the iPhone 6 upon its release, and a whole bunch of other Apple equipment. So yeah, exact antithesis here. But I'm not a Beats customer. I was going to play around with the Beats streaming service, never got around to it. It kind of soft launched, and then I lost interest in trying it. It was weird. Yeah. That's the peril of a soft launch, is there was no, I must do it now. It was, I'm already way behind. I'll get around to it later,
Right.
So I never really tinkered with it. I have never bought like Beats headphones or anything like that. I know plenty of people who have and love them and swear by them. But
they're a polarizing topic. I think anything popular tends to be polarizing. People don't like that. There's a premium headphone market, and it's as much. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an audiophile, so to speak. But it's a lifestyle in a way, a lifestyle brand, and so I think
it's like Apple.
And it's interesting. Someone like Diddy is not really involved in the headphone thing. He did a partnership with Beats for a little while but really he does that in a different way though with premium spirits brands, and so and the Revolt TV network and these products and clothing, and it's a lifestyle and selling a quality product. So it's interesting. I don't know. I don't know many other brands that are so tied to particular people that have sold for so much. So it's interesting in that area, and I mean that's all I have to say. So let's talk about copyright.
Yeah, let's talk about copyright. It sounds like a brilliant idea. Even though that was copyright-ish related, music licensing came up.
Sure, briefly.
Yeah, briefly. Yeah, okay, fine. Talking about copyright, shifting gears and jumping in. First story this week, a big, widely heralded ruling from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled that AF Holdings, being represented by Prenda Law, you might remember them, will not be able to get access to the identities of some 1,058 John Doe defendants they sued, alleging that they illegally shared and BitTorrented various pornographic films that the company holds the rights to. Now, AF Holdings has had a long history of doing this, and what they would do is they would scan the BitTorrents, find all the IP addresses they could get their hands on that were sharing their content illegally, and then they would file a lawsuit against all 1,058, in this case, John Doe defendants, seeking a subpoena from the various ISPs, hoping to get their identities turned over to them, and then they would dismiss the lawsuits and then sort of target all those people for settlement action. They would send them letters, and maybe sometimes they would sue, individuals that didn't respond, but whatever. Most of the time, they were just seeking quick settlements from these guys. Well, the judge in this, well, the three-panel judge, I should say, has ruled that they do not deserve to get the names in this case, at the very least. And the reasons were pretty straightforward here. It was one. Hang on one second, I just lost my place. It
was one, they're stupid. Two, they're corrupt. Three, they had a bad business model. Four, they're out of here.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Long story short, I just had it, but basically sued them. But basically dropped the lawsuit because there was no feasible way in which they could sue all 1,000 people, because most of the defendants, estimated only 1 in I think 400 or so, were actually in the D.C. area, and also because the court didn't find there was any connection between the alleged defendants that made sense for joining them in a single lawsuit. So it's sort of a triple whammy against their approach to this, and now that it's been blamed, it's widely expected other circuit courts will take a similar tact, and since it's a circuit court, district courts probably will as well.
Yeah, AF Holdings being Prenda Law,
yeah.
So worth pointing out, because Prenda gets all the headlines. AF is sort of the name, the DBA,
yeah.
doing business as AF Holdings now. Yeah, I don't know. It's not unexpected. I mean, Prenda's, if not dead, life support. I mean, they're beaten up badly. They just fought like they had to fight both Rocky Balboa and Clubber Lang at once and beat up pretty badly. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that they. I mean, is this the last thing for them? Like, how much more is Prenda going to be strung out?
I don't know. I guess they could appeal to the Supreme Court and see how that goes.
Well, no, I mean, but is Prenda still a thing?
To my knowledge, it's still technically on paper is, but
I mean, the last time we talked about them, I think, was when they were getting torn apart, and there was talks about like how they used some guy's identity and all this stuff, and it seemed like there wasn't much to say there anymore. Like it was just a hollow shell.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the case for them for a long time. Yet they keep filing lawsuits and keep moving forward somehow.
So is this a holdover, right? This was filed a while ago.
This was filed over a year ago, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I wonder how many active cases they have left, because you have to figure that the old Judge Social Network by now is all hip to Prenda, so they're all on Judge
Book.
Yeah, whatever they have, and they've all talked about it. They all know what AF Holdings / Prenda is, and they're all going to go against them. So it's like they're pretty much dead in the water. They might need to form a new company, FU Holdings or something like that. It's just not going to work out. Like they need a different name, or they need to just save their money, and just file for dismissal.
They could say
although I think in some cases, though, right? I mean, they might not be allowed to dismiss. Like the other side might push it, so they get a ruling that'll be cited in the future.
Yeah, and that's a problem that they've been having, is they've been trying to dismiss cases, haven't been able to, because the other side is seeking compensation for what they believe are damages they incurred unfairly. So that's been a problem they've had too.
Brenda, what have you done?
Well, lost a very important appeals court case. That's the answer to that one.
Yeah.
Well, this one's kind of interesting. Harper Lee, author of To Kill a Mockingbird, and that was her sole published work, has revived a lawsuit against the Monroe County Heritage Museum. Now, this is kind of a bizarre situation here. We talked a little bit about this lawsuit previously, back when it was first filed, but and then it was eventually settled the first time. But long story short, this museum operates in the town, an Alabama town, that was the inspiration for To Kill a Mockingbird. Have you read To Kill a Mockingbird?
Gosh, I don't think so. Pretty sure I haven't. No, I haven't.
I'm not here to judge. But,
no, I've skipped a lot of that stuff.
But a lot of it centers around a courtroom drama.
Right.
And they're in the actual courthouse that inspired Harper Lee actually exists in that town. And I actually visited the museum site and looked at the photos of the courthouse, and it is very, very similar to both the courthouse in the book and in the movie. So yeah, it does actually really look like it. But the point being, too, in fact, it may have actually been where they set the movie, for all I know. That's a good question. I got to look that one up later. Long and short of it is that Harper Lee got upset that this museum was selling merchandise related to Kill a Mockingbird. She alleged infringing both her copyrights and her trademarks. And she sought some sort of compensation. According to her, they made something like $500,000 in 2011. No word, but it made sense. But the long and short of it is she reached some kind of settlement with them. And the lawsuit was eventually dismissed. This was, I think, back in February it was dismissed. And the result of that was, it was in February it was settled. But apparently, according to Harper Lee's camp, the museum has failed to complete the terms of the settlement and is constantly trying to change the terms, add new elements to it. And so the lawsuit has now been reinstated, and the judge has given permission to sort of light the torch again on it, which is a pretty unusual move.
Is it?
Yes, it is. Usually when a lawsuit is settled, it stays settled.
Right, and so settlement to me implies that paperwork has been signed, and yet the attorney for Lee here says that the museum is making further requests.
Yeah.
So that implies that there isn't a concrete agreement in place. I mean, they could have an agreement and just want to change it, but normally a request would be made before the ink is dry.
You would hope, but
yeah. So that's kind of odd. When I read that,
it is odd, and it was definitely some sort of settlement. There was definitely something in writing here. So once you involve attorneys, you're getting something in writing, whether you want it or not.
Right.
You know, you're not going to avoid that if the attorneys are at all doing their job. It's not a handshake deal here, but yeah, long and short of it is that apparently they're not happy with the way the museum has carried out the side of the deal, so the lawsuit is back on.
Yeah, the IMDb page for Kill a Mockingbird, which IMDb tends to be fairly accurate.
Yeah,
I don't know where they pull in all their data. Certainly, some of it might be incorrect. I don't know, but it does list Monroeville, Alabama, as one of the 6 filming locations.
Okay.
First 4 being different backlots and stages in Universal City, California, at the Universal Studios lot, and then one more being Pasadena, California. So then it mentions those 5 California spots, then Monroeville, Alabama.
Yeah, sounds good.
That's a lot of money, $500,000 for selling. I don't know. I don't know. It's a popular book, obviously. So, but it is an old work. It is an older film. So it's not necessarily at the peak of public interest, I would say, right now. It's popular enough. So, yeah, you know what? I guess that's not that much, considering that there probably is a fair number of people that do travel there to see it.
And it's unclear based on the way that information is presented if that's revenue or profit.
Right, and it is just her opinion, it seems like. I mean, It says her suit contended. It doesn't mean they actually did, just because she says it. Or more importantly, just because whoever's behind the suit says it. Because, I mean, it says she's in declining health. Yeah. So, you know, does she have kids? Does she have a family or something? Like, who else would be behind it? I don't know.
There's a big dispute over that. She does have, I believe, family that's helping her look over it. But I don't know if it's her children or if it's extended family. But she does have for helping her. In fact, there was a big deal there because one of her literary agents, remember, tried to sneak in and take the rights to the book and all that, and there was that big controversy, and then other family members stepped in to protect her. So that happened, and so we know there are people looking out for her interests, but they may not be her children.
Yeah, or at least we hope so.
She's obviously got someone looking out for her interest, and they're pushing this issue.
Someone looking out for someone's interest.
Exactly.
Anyway. It's unclear. All the details are unclear, but it's definitely someone for someone.
Exactly. Someone is doing something right now.
For someone.
Back to you, Dave.
Yeah. Speaking of Universal.
Yeah, Universal is trying to bring an end to the digital class action royalties. Now, long and short of it is this. When a lot of record contracts were signed, i.e. most record contracts before, say, 2000-ish, the idea of selling songs digitally was a foreign concept, They never thought of it. It was not put in any record agreements. It was not mentioned. So what happens when a lot of these artists start having their music sold in iTunes? One issue of royalties crops up. And that issue of royalties is pretty complicated because the record labels considered selling music through iTunes and Amazon and whatever else to be a sale. And therefore the royalty was 15%. However, the musicians, in many cases, and this includes a lot of names not even mentioned, this like Weird Al, considered it to be a license. And the royalty on a license is 50%. And that's a pretty significant jump in royalties. That's more than 3 times the royalties for those playing along at home. So the question is, what are these musicians ordered to get? What do they deserve? Well, there's been a bunch of lawsuits, a bunch of class actions taken against this exact same issue. Other labels have settled them to the best of their ability, including Sony and Warner, have done their best to settle these issues somewhat quietly and amicably. But Universal, however, has been fighting back. They have been fighting back hard and are trying to keep this one at bay, and that's not exactly clear why. But basically, they're making the argument, and I'll just read from the article here by Eric Gardner of the Hollywood Reporter, saying that iTunes downloads as the equivalent of a physical sale through a new distribution channel. An interpretation, it says, would have entitled the label to make packaging deductions and when calculating royalties. So basically, the Universal's making the argument that yes, it is the same as a sale. We know it is. It is pretty much identical. There you go. Have fun. And that's them. Like I said, they're hitting back at it hard. They're really battling this tooth and nail. They're also challenging on other grounds, and including basically there's a lot of state law claims here too that really confuse the heck out of me. So I'm not going to get into too deeply. But yeah. This is Universal fighting back where the other labels have quit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much to say about this. I don't know what to think about this matter because I'm of 2 different minds. I think that it kind of comes back to the contracts, what was agreed to, and that's what's at dispute really here. But my contract for my publishing agreement with Emicom was signed before certain things were real. And so, generally speaking, if the publisher uses those means to sell the book, I get half. Mm-hmm. And the things they defined, I get 15%. So, that seems like how the music industry would normally work as well. And so, I can understand why the artist would be fighting to get that half because that's a big deal to, your income. And music contracts, 15% generally doesn't, for most artists, because you have to keep in mind the enormity of artistry, 15% doesn't end up adding up to very much. And so, a lot of people will supplement that with touring, with merchandise, with other things. But, to get that half in what is the preeminent medium, or at least what is believed will be the preeminent medium into the future, digital downloads, I think it's worth fighting for. On the other hand, I understand why the labels are arguing that it is a sale. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what side to fall on this one.
Well, and part of it is that the idea of a digital download doesn't fit the paradigm of sale versus license very neatly.
Right.
It's kind of neither, if you think about it.
Yeah, in the sense of having a physical object.
Yeah, in some ways it is a sale. It's one purchase, one download. You're not renting it. You do get to keep it. But in another, it's not a sale because you can't, resell it.
Right.
It's not something you can take to the corner shop and resell it. You would have, and you can theoretically lose it if you lose access to break the DRM in the case of certain music download services and so forth. So it's kind of neither at the same time. It has attributes of both and really doesn't it's a situation that new record contracts, of course, have clarified. You know, anything since, I'd say, 2000, 2001 probably mentions digital downloads explicitly. But, you know, you've got a lot of these musicians from back, you know, in decades prior who haven't released new albums that are still getting royalties from old ones, and in many cases are very dependent upon those royalties. A lot of musicians in the 60s and 70s and so forth, that's how they survive. You know, that's what they're fighting for here.
Yeah, and it's fair to say that, you know, the point you just alluded to, because it's like that for any item, really.
Yeah.
When you think about buying movies, buying software, you know, the idea of ownership has changed to the point where it really means that you're getting a license for one song. I mean, that's how people term it. That's how people in this space, copyright space, term it when they're talking about, you know, why people shouldn't pirate, why people can't just sell songs. Well, because you get a license to one copy. And so if you use the terminology of a license, then it's a license.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how a lot of people refer to these relationships. Is you have a license to the software, the EULA. You have a end user license to a piece of software, to a movie, to a download. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely up for dispute.
Ownership has changed to mean access in many ways.
Yeah.
I have access to listen to this or to view this whenever I want. It's no longer, I mean, I own this CD here. Which one did I choose? Johnny Cash. Good choice. Good pick, Jonathan. Good. I own this CD. It's mine. If you wanted to buy it from me, I could sell it to you. You know, we can do something with that. Yeah. But if it's a digital purchase, I don't really own it in the same sense. I have access to it, and in fact, my access to the work might be greater than if I own it. Because if I'm away from home and I don't have this CD on my laptop, I don't have access to it.
Right.
But if it's in my iTunes iCloud, I have access anywhere in the world I go.
Right. Or if it's like Amazon Auto Rip and you get it automatically in the cloud, then you just have it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so it's a different definition, and this is just a different battle on that. This is the other side of it. This is the content creator versus label side, where we've previously been talking a lot about the purchaser versus the seller side of it.
It's funny. I don't usually, and just to kind of close this out on a humorous note, I don't really use the Oxford comma. Okay. So I never have, but I use commas in a way to try to make clear what I'm writing about. Yeah. So in lists, if I say apple and brown and purple, I generally don't put a comma before the end for that.
Yeah.
But if there's a clarity issue, I'll put a comma to make sure there's a separation. And when I was reading through this article, I read this line here, and this line says the following. Okay, it is. Let's see. Many of the cases were then consolidated along the way. Some artists, like Rob Zombie and Otis Williams of the Temptations, and I thought to myself, "Wait a minute, Rob Zombie's not in the Temptations." I know that's not a fact, and so, but because there was no comma there, I actually read it that way in my mind. I said, "Wait a minute, Rob Zombie, he has not been in the Temptations." I know that to be a fact, Eric Gardner.
If you are listening to this right now, your challenge is to do some kind of Rob Zombie Temptations mashup just to put Rob Zombie in the Temptations.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be potential there. Rob Zombie has worked with various artists, including Diddy, on the remix to "It's All About the Benjamins," the rock remix. He worked on that. So, yeah, Sean actually just saw him live recently.
Rob Zombie is like Pharrell Williams. He's worked with everyone at some point or another on something.
He's the Pharrell Williams of scary rock and roll.
Exactly. He's the Pharrell Williams of scary rock. Him and Trent Reznor are the Pharrell Williams of scary rock and roll. There you go.
That's funny.
All right. Well, shifting gears now and turning to...
Oh, I'm sorry. One other thing I wanted to mention real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
When you introduced that story, I kind of implied, speaking of Universal, and, you know, there's Universal Pictures, there's Universal Music. I just wanted to clarify because I was not sure myself, but I did a little bit of research here. Universal Music, and they were at one point linked, but right now Universal Music Group is under Vivendi, and so that's their parent company. Whereas Universal Pictures, Universal Parks and Resorts, that falls under NBC Universal, which falls under Comcast. So different companies. Anyway, just want to point that out. Sorry.
Well, that's interesting. I never actually thought about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, me neither. Until I said it and realized that I just say I didn't come out and say it, but I implied speaking Universal. I meant to turn on the phrase, but speaking of me saying the same company, and that's not incorrect. That's not correct.
Speaking of the word Universal, here's two companies with Universal in the name.
Yeah,
right?
That'd be too much.
All right. Well, shifting gears to international news, Torrentz with a Z.eu had kind of an exciting weekend, we might say. Sometime over the weekend, their domain was seized due to action from the Police Intellectual Property Crime Unit of the City of London Police.
Those ballers of the long name.
Yeah, we've the PIPCU, as they like to call themselves for short, the PIPSU. Anywho, however, after a
anywho, go ahead. Sorry.
Anywho. But yes, after a sternly worded letter from the lawyers at Torrentz.eu, the registrar returned the domain back to them, pointed the DNS and everything else back to their server, so everything was back up and running in about 24 hours. But still, it was pretty interesting to see this, because Torrentz.eu apparently is the most popular torrent search engine on the planet right now, or at least one of the most popular. And even though they don't actually host any track or anything like that, still obviously a target for copyright complaints and copyright issues. And yeah, basically they had their domain seized and restored almost straight away after the registrar apparently has admitted to making a mistake. So yeah, not really a lot to say about it.
Yeah, not too much to say.
Well, I do find it interesting though that they cite the Internet Corporation for Assigning Names and Numbers, ICANN. They are basically the nonprofit group responsible for the domain system that we have. If you register a domain, you pay an ICANN fee every time. But long and short of it is they cite their policies on these types of seizures, saying that it requires a court order from the host nation. And since this was just a request from the police, it didn't qualify.
Interesting.
Which, raises questions about all the other domains that have been seized by the City of London Police this way. Just saying.
Yeah, it does. You're right.
Well. Oh, the story of the week for me now. This is the one I've been talking about. I just got done posting on PT about. Spike Lee last year released a film called Oldboy. Not sure how well it did. I really didn't follow the movie at all. And Patrick will look it up while I'm done BSing through the story.
Sure.
But long and short of it is, a designer by the name of Juan Luis Garcia, short after the film was released, came forward saying that he had designed the posters that were, at least 3 of the posters, that were designed and used to promote the film, and that he was not paid anything for them. Basically, his story was this, that he was in January of 2013, he was contacted by people on Spike Lee's team to create these posters. He worked for 2 months on them, showed them his work, and after he showed them what he had done, basically, according to Garcia, they lowballed him. They gave him a what he considered an insultingly low offer, and he walked. And it killed him to do it, 'cause like I said, it was 2 months of his time gone. Big project, big hopes for it, but he walked away from it. And then he found in November of that year that his posters were being used pretty much as is. I don't think there are any differences looking at the actual complaint. And he initially published an open letter to Spike Lee saying, hey, please pay me, I'm your graphic designer, what the heck, what's going on here? Spike Lee denied knowing anything about this guy, which is entirely possible. Let's be clear about this. That's not necessarily a knock on Spike Lee or Garcia here. I don't think there's any indication that Lee and Garcia ever actually were in the same room on this project,
Right.
This was handled mostly by Spike Lee's production companies and the promoters working with them. I don't think Spike Lee was directly involved in this aspect of the poster design and development. So that's entirely possible. No dispute.
Right.
But he's still kind of dismissive of Garcia's claims now, all these months later. About 6 months later, the lawsuit has been filed, and it looks, honestly, pretty good for Garcia. He did a lot of things right with this. He has timely registration of his works. They were all registered in March of 2013, so it's proof of his ownership there. And timely registration gives him all the statutory damages and whatnot. And he is also suing for the manipulation and removal of copyright management information, CMI, which adds yet another complaint to his suit.
It's interesting that you point out March 2013 registration, because the movie was released in September of 2013 or November of 2013.
November, yeah.
So that looks good for him.
Yeah, that looks very good.
To say this to put it lightly. Yeah,
I mean,
and I want to say Spike Lee here. The letter has been taken down, as you noted in your piece. But it didn't seem like from the parts I read that he was calling out Spike Lee as much as he was asking for his assistance. Because he basically, there's a quote here. Gosh, what's the quote? More or less saying that he feels like he has a sinking feeling that Spike Lee was probably a victim just like he was. So it's I don't know what to say else beyond this. He has the registration, like he pointed out. That's really strong. And so I expect that things will go well for him. I don't know. Yeah. It just seems like he's got his stuff together, and I think that's further illustration of the fact that he does this for a living. Yeah. Like it mentions here in this article, and Gardner says Garcia says he previously designed the posters for such films as The Great Gatsby, 12 Years a Slave, Lincoln, 42 and Jobs, meaning he could be lying about it. But I don't think he is, right? I don't really think he's lying about making those posters. It seems like this is an artist who does this work. Things happen. Doesn't mean there's some evil person working with Spike Lee or at one of the production companies or whoever made the decision. But yeah, if they used it and they didn't pay him and they took credit for it, then things are going to happen.
Yeah, and and if you think about it, if his ducks weren't in such a row, he would be in a bad spot here, because he wouldn't have that registration, he wouldn't have the threat of statutory damages. He might be in a situation where, despite the fact his posters were used for a pretty major release film, it might not be worth filing a lawsuit over.
It's a good point. I mean, he'd still have the credibility, but he wouldn't have the possible financial benefit of filing a lawsuit because of how our system works.
It might not even behoove him to file the lawsuit. So, by having his ducks so much in a row, he set himself up. He's got a clear path on this. And personally, my expectation, and this is like the safest expectation with almost any lawsuit filed, I'm expecting a settlement one way or the other pretty quickly on this one. I think this one will banter back and forth a little bit, but the reality of it is it's in everyone's best interest to settle this one quickly and put it behind them. Because whatever happened here should not have happened, quite clearly, and it's going to be, it's just something that's got to be buried with. So, well, speaking of Universal, I didn't realize I had 3 Universals in the same thing. We'll put them together then. They could have been like a little happy Universal family. This is Universal Studios, though, as we just learned. And this is from Dominic Patton at Deadline. Universal Studios is hitting back again at the Section 6 lawsuit and requesting that it be dismissed. Long and short of it here, Universal is allegedly, possibly, maybe, kind of, we're not really sure what's going on here, developing a movie called Section 6, which MGM, their big competitor, feels is kind of, sort of, maybe, could be based upon an infringement of the James Bond franchise. And MGM is basically requesting to see the script, but Universal is saying, hey, the script's not even really done. We're kind of, still working on it, and we're making a lot of big changes. Talk to us afterward. Well, they've been battling back and forth for a bit, but now Universal is calling for the lawsuit to be dismissed, basically on the grounds that the complaint has no claims upon which relief may be granted against Universal, saying there's nothing here. So yeah, I have a feeling this one might actually be granted. I usually don't report on requests for this type of summary judgment, but it seems like this one might be granted just because of the way this lawsuit has gone, and the fact that so far MGM has not had a lot of luck in this case in compelling discovery against Universal, which was their real goal, I think.
Yeah, when I read the story, I was like, who might have seen the script? I don't know. There's a comment here that suggests, and of course, comment, but it suggested that this script got attention in the spec script market, and because this comment says it explained the origins of all the favorite attributes of the Bond character. So, take it as you will. I don't know. It's tough because we don't know the current form of the script, and would it be reasonable for the court to force that? I mean, it doesn't seem like a thing that would happen.
Expedited, unilateral discovery is very, very, very unusual.
Yeah, I mean,
what they were basically asking for. That's almost unheard of. I mean, I'm sure there are situations where it happens, but it's just it'd have to be a pretty extraordinary circumstance.
I mean, yeah, I guess I'm trying to think, risk reward here. You're preempting the release of the movie, right? Trying to preempt the release of a movie that might infringe upon your work. That's
trying to preempt even the actual shooting and production of the film too at this point.
Trying to preempt the creation of something that might infringe upon your work versus it happening and you reacting to it. I'm trying to think which is worse, which is better. Because, for some franchises that might be bad. For Bond, I mean, Bond's been around forever.
Yeah.
So how much damage would this movie do to Bond? And if they actually factually a judge can find that they actually did infringe the work, and I should caution my actually usage there because I use the word too much, but if they can find that, then they might find more money out of it. If you look at it from a money perspective. But at this point, maybe they're going on that spec script if that's a thing that happened. And yeah, I don't know. Most of these cases, as we discussed, tend to be after the fact when something's out there, when something's being consumed, and there can be some kind of comparison, not an anonymous, unknown work at this stage and claims that it infringes something.
Yeah, when we usually see these cases, if we see them before the release of a film, it's like not long before.
Right.
Weeks or months before. After it's been shot, it's mostly edited, and we're reasonably sure what's in the movie. When you've got a script, it's pretty trivial to move words around on the screen and remove anything that might potentially be infringing. And that may be what this was really about.
Get a good content spinner.
Yeah, exactly. This may be what it was about. Reality, though, was sort of putting Universal on notice that MGM is aware of the film and they're watching it and they're not going to tolerate anything that treads too close to James Bond waters. But the comments on this are pretty interesting. By any long shot, have you seen the Our Man Flint movies? There's actually 2 of them.
No.
They are a James Bond kind of parody, kind of serious style thing. It's really they're entertaining movies. I recommend them. The first one was better than the second one, in my personal opinion, but it's in that same genre, and it's and this was the type of thing that was going on well before. It's 1966. James Bond was a thing, but not being so legally protected, I guess, because this is the type of thing that I'm almost certain would have drawn the wrath of MGM back then if the MGM were behaving like it is today.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of this before. In like Our Man Flint, In Like Flint. The sequel.
And I'm being told there's actually a third one. I didn't realize there was 3. I thought it was only 2. I've only seen 2.
Yeah, I'm seeing that too in the Wikipedia, some sort of TV movie.
TV movie. That's why I never saw it. Screw that. I don't care.
It's not. James Coburn's not in it.
There you go. That's a real problem.
Yeah, he's Ray Denton is in it, and
I don't know who he
Kim
is.
Cattrall's in it somehow in 1976 as sort of a minor character, but I guess because her name is last, so that's my presumption. Yeah. Interesting. I may have to check that out. It says Wikipedia describes it as a parody.
Yeah, it's fundamentally a parody, but it's also kind of semi-serious at the same time. It's definitely parody-esque, though.
Right. That reminds me also, you mentioned how the Oldboy movie did, and you said I would look it up, and I did, but I forgot to bring it up in our conversation. Apparently on a budget of $30 million, it made $4.9. So it lost quite a bit of money.
Not good.
At least domestically. I mean, I don't know what...
Not good.
Might happen outside the country. I don't know. Maybe that does include international. Let me see. It might. Yeah, it does. It does include international. Yeah, so it's 4.861. You can round up to 4.9. So.
Garcia.
Lost quite a bit of movie.
Maybe we should be taking a little pity on Mr. Lee.
Yeah, we're gonna have to find some money from somewhere to pay.
Quick, pass the hat around for Garcia.
Yeah.
So Lee can pay him.
Yeah.
Oh God, this is gonna be a long show. But yes.
Thankfully, Lee's personal assets will likely be kept out.
I'm sure they will. Yes, I have no doubt about
that. That'll be interesting.
But yes, that's the latest on that one. And finally, our final story this week, it deals with Newsbin, surprisingly, and the dispute over the damages that the MPA, the Motion Picture Association, I keep wanting to say MPAA, but this is the MPA, the international version. Difference there. Long and short of it, Newsbin was a Usenet indexing and access site that allowed you to download primarily pirated content from Usenet servers, because it's 2014 and Usenet's still a thing, Mr. Community Expert, care to shine any light on that one?
Yeah, I don't know. I was see that you talk about things before my time. I mean, that wasn't. I don't know. See, I never, and I mean never. Like, I'll say on the torrent stuff, I did download LimeWire once and poke around and see what it was about. Usenet, I have never even poked around. I never even looked at Usenet. I mean, Usenet groups and stuff. The only kind of time I ever came in contact with them was there was a time period on the internet where people would suck them into forums and republish them as content.
Really?
You would have news groups that would be published as a forum post.
That's
People
terrible.
would never actually be there, but it would just be content for forums to kind of suck in, which I'm not sure what the licensing on all that stuff was. Who the heck knows, really, I guess. But that's where that's where I would see it. Sorry. Anyway, that's all I've got for you. No, I never used Usenet.
I remember back before the World Wide Web was like readily accessible. Back like on Prodigy and whatnot, and you didn't really have a web the sign on to. I poked around Usenet a little bit. I was like, I want to say 14, 13 at the time, somewhere in that range. I was very young, and I was way too young to be exposed to what was going on to Usenet at that time, because there was no filtering there in terms of content. You know what I mean?
I bet.
Like none. You'd be trying to read something about science and tripping. You know what? Just try not to think too hard about it. Long and short of it is, apparently Usenet is still a thing. And Newsbin, and then later Newsbin.eu, were sites that indexed and allowed access to it. Both of those sites have been shut down. But an issue centered around the payment processor for Newsbin.eu in particular. Specifically, any guesses on how to pronounce that, Patrick? KTX by? Thanks, K-Thanks by.
Yeah, exactly. You got it.
K-Thanks by, got it.
That's how I pronounce it. And also David Harris.
I had to play a license plate. I had to play the license plate game in my head on that one.
Yeah, because they just mashed it together.
Yeah, they just mashed. K-Thanks by, and David Harrister, who defended it. Basically, MPA was trying to go after assets which allegedly were not, presented to them or supposedly hidden away and kept from them that they weren't able to collect. Well, now they were able to, after years of work, prove that these assets, A, existed, and B, get a court to agree to a $2.2 million judgment against them for this. So, yeah, it seems like this is the end of the Newsbin stories, and it's a happy one for the movie studios, but man, did it sure take a long time.
Yeah, it did take a while. Interestingly, the guy's blogging. I don't know if you saw that or not. It's linked to at the bottom of this article, but basically he writes, it's geeklore.wordpress.com, and his latest post is titled, I don't know, rather, I'll just say it, shitty day. And it basically talks about his very bad day in court and how he's going to have to pay this money. And yeah, like I said, it's taken a while, but it seems like they've kind of weaved through the layers of gosh, what's the word? Obfuscate. There you go, obfuscation. I think that's what I really want. Obfuscation, if that's a word.
It is.
To break out, dust off the old thesaurus, the old list of words. But yeah, I mean, it seems like that's what's going on here. And I don't know, what is that? 2.2 million. How does that rank? That doesn't seem like a lot in the scale of piracy cases involving these websites.
And remember, Jamie Thomas got hit with like 1.6 million at one point, and she was just a lone file sharer. So
yeah,
just saying, put it in perspective here.
Yeah. So now she can point to it and say, hey, I'm just one person. This was a whole criminal mastermind organization with organizations owning
and Ferraris and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Or that's a Lamborghini, actually, in the article, isn't it?
It's a McLaren.
I'm sorry, no, technically I was wrong. It was not 1.6, it was 1.92. That's much better. So,
yeah.
There you go. But long and short of it is, this case is finally over, and as you pointed out, he has had a really bad day. So there you go. Well, Patrick, any further copyright news? Did I forget a story this week?
No.
I got them all.
I think you did it all.
Yeah, last week I skipped a story on accident, guys. Well, on that note, if you got any final thoughts, anything you want to throw out? Shout-outs? No pressure.
Nope. Shout out. Do I have anything this week? No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either for me. So we'll just wrap it up then. My name is Jonathan Bailey. I'm from the website Plagiarism Today, which can be found at plagiarismtoday.com. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, anywhere else you can think of, probably at username Plagiarism Today.
I'm Patrick O'Keefe. I blog at managingcommunities.com. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and LinkedIn as Patrick O'Keefe.
On that note, everyone, thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you guys next week.